Part 52. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 511. Chapter 511 Why mobilize troops and mobilize people like this? Mrs. Lee knew that the children were frightened and felt a little distressed, but she still said, "You are old too. Think more about what happened today, and be more considerate no matter who you get along with in the future. The family can protect you for a while. I can't protect you for the rest of your life, do you understand?" The boys all nodded, and Gxi took the lead and said, "Grandma, don't worry, we understand." Mrs. Lee patted her grandchildren on the back and called her granddaughter, "First find some snacks or food for your brothers to fill their bellies. It will take a while for dinner to be ready." "I know," Grandma Jian nodded with a smile, and then called to the brothers, "Come on, brother, come back to the house with me, there is delicious food." She waved her little chubby hands, looking majestic like a big brother in society, and stepped into the house first with her calves. Before Gxi and the others could follow, the little fox Santiago had already rushed in with a swish. "Hey, Santiago is going to be eaten secretly, so hurry up. Just now, it was trying to steal my fruit." The boys chased the little fox and chased after it with a whooshing noise. When there was movement in the yard, it became lively again. Mrs. Lee breathed a long sigh of relief. When she saw her grandson's daughter-in-law coming out of the kitchen, she said, "Let Shuiling go to the cafeteria and ask Hong Ying to cook some good dishes and send them to Dean Zhou's house later. Your uncle they probably had to eat there until very late. There are so many people here suddenly it's hard to prepare food. Don't make it difficult for Mrs. Zhou. Our family runs a canteen, so it's easy to do this." "Okay, Grandma." Wenjuan responded, turned around and said to the kitchen, and Shuiling went out. "Dean Zhou does not teach on weekdays, and the weather has been hot these days. He mostly hides at home to enjoy the cool air, occasionally tending to the flowers and plants, and playing chess and drinking tea with old friends, which is quite comfortable." At this moment, he was only wearing an undershirt, shaking his fan and talking to his old wife. He frowned when he suddenly heard that the three brothers of the Li family and Yashi Wen had come to pay their respects. Mrs. Zhou thought he didn't like people ruining his tranquility, so she advised him, "The Li family is very considerate in their etiquette. They even sent fish and shrimps here before. If I ask you for anything, I will help you in any way I can. Although this family has a poor background, they are very likable in their conduct. I will definitely do nothing wrong in the future." Dean Zhou waved his hand and called his servants to get the guests' clothes, and said, "It's not what you think. The Li family is afraid that something big will happen if they mobilize troops like this." Mrs. Zhou was also curious and quickly helped him get dressed and said, "If anything happens, please send me a message in time. I will keep it in mind." "Okay, got it," Dean Zhou responded, and then went to the front. When the two sides meet, it is indispensable to exchange greetings and politeness. When Dean Zhou saw that Jiren and brother Li were there, he asked, "Why didn't these two children go to dinner? In half an hour, they will have evening classes." Li Lao bowed his hands and said, "Dean, we have taken the liberty to come here today because we really have something important to say, and it is related to these two children. Please also ask the Dean to send someone to invite Mr. Peng, and it is best to add a few respected gentlemen from the academy who act impartially to bear witness together." Dean Zhou took a deep breath and knew in his heart that his guess was correct. What the Li family had to say today was definitely not a small matter. He didn't ask any more questions. He called the chief and the young man and gave some instructions. Soon, Mr. Peng and two old gentlemen came to the door. Mr. Peng was Jiren's mentor. The other two old gentlemen, one surnamed Cheng, were in charge of the academy's discipline hall. He was responsible for punishing the students who made major or minor mistakes. Another surname is Gang, who is also recognized as a tough man in the academy and is very strict in his conduct. Mr. Peng originally thought that the Li family was visiting the dean and invited him to accompany them. However, when he entered the house and found that the atmosphere was not right, he realized that something was fishy. Mr. Cheng and Mr. Geng were also puzzled, but they didn't ask. Dean Zhou said, "Uncle Li, can you tell me what happened?" Li Lauer stood up, bowed to Mr. Peng, Mr. Cheng, and Mr. Geng, and then said, "Something happened at home in the past 2 days. I originally thought it was just related to the future of the child, but I was awakened by GRN just now. I just remembered that if this matter is not handled well, it will have a greater impact on the academy." After that, he went out shopping with his family, but was forced to sell 2 wooden signs of safety charms by a vendor. His little niece naughtily discovered the strangeness of the wooden signs, and the vendor was instigated by GRN's classmate's book boy. "Carefully," said it again. Li Lao-san also took out the 2 wooden signs and fiddled with them a few times. The wooden signs were opened and the pieces of paper inside were displayed in front of everyone. Dean Zhou and several other gentlemen have devoted half of their lives to the academy, teaching and educating people, and doing their best to send students onto the road to success. There are no taboos regarding exams, big or small, as they are simply too familiar with them. In their eyes, these 2 wooden signs and pieces of paper were like an earthquake, shaking the earth and the earth. Uncle Li, has this matter been investigated clearly? Dean Zhou subconsciously did not want to believe it. The student who used such vicious methods to frame his classmates and cut them off from the scientific examinations was actually from their college. Mr. Peng, Mr. Cheng, and Mr. Geng were also shocked and angry, but most of them were unwilling to believe it. Li Lao replied, "Dear gentlemen, our Li family is not so idle. We caught 2 students and framed them for no reason. What is the matter? It is better to find the people, the right and wrong, and ask them face to face. Both the 2 students and the book boy in charge are in the academy at the moment. Although Mr. Cheng is in charge of the discipline hall, he has a hard-spoken and soft-hearted temper and is very protective of his students. At this time," he said with a cold face, "Uncle Li, if it is finally discovered that this matter was not caused by the academy students and it was a misunderstanding, what will you do? Students are still young and are about to take exams. If this matter affects their future and delays their future, this cannot be compensated by just being a casual companion." Li Lauer didn't feel angry after hearing this, and responded sternly, "If the investigation on this matter is clear and it turns out that our Li family has wronged 2 students, then I am willing to make a big apology and even apologize in front of the entire academy students. Clear the names of 2 students. If they have other demands, our Li family will definitely try our best to compensate them, but having said that, if the 2 of them are really up to no good and frame and harm their classmates, I hope the college will deal with it fairly. After all, our family has exposed their conspiracy in this matter. They used any means to hang 2 questionable signs on 2 students. When the time comes, there will be a commotion in the examination room. The 2 students deserve what they deserve. Luoan Academy, it will also cause disgrace. This trip is only possible because my son Grn is devoted to the academy and doesn't want the academy to be humiliated, so he tried hard to persuade us. I hope the academy will not disappoint us and chill my son's heart." Mr. Cheng's face turned red as he was blocked, and he turned to look at Dean Zhou. Dean Zhou nodded slowly and assured everyone in the Li family on behalf of the academy, "Don't worry, we will handle this matter impartially." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 512. Chapter 512, Internal Strife Between Master and Servant. Li Lauer responded, "Well, let's arrest them. It's best to question the book boy and the 2 students separately, otherwise it will be easy to collude in confession." Dean Zhou immediately called Chen Sui and the boy. Li Lauer's eyes flashed, and he motioned Yeshan and Dong Mei to come forward and said, "This is the Marquis Chen Sui. He knows some martial arts, so why not let them help?" Dean Zhou and others dared not say anything bad, so Yeshan, Dongmei, and Dean Zhou's servants gathered together and went out. To the south of the academy, close to the foot of the mountain, there are some grass pavilions and the like set up because of the lush vegetation. It is also a good place for students to cool off and relieve the heat. At this moment, two students were sitting in the grass pavilion, unbuttoning their coats and throwing them aside, and then they were waving their fans in a very shameless manner. One of them complained, "Why hasn't Mo Xiang come back? Did this kid wander off to play somewhere on the road? No, he doesn't have the guts. There are probably too many people buying fruit drinks, so we have to wait in line for a while," another person responded and was about to speak when he saw a strange man coming over with the chief attendant of the dean. The two of them subconsciously pulled off their outer shirts and quickly put them on. I originally thought that the dean's entourage would be passing by, but unexpectedly, they came straight towards them. "You are Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng, two young gentlemen, please come with us. The dean has something to ask you personally." The dean then spoke without any politeness and his face was very cold. Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng subconsciously felt bad, and they quickly stood up. Wang Sheng asked anxiously, "Dean, if you have anything to ask, can't you wait until tomorrow? We will have evening classes soon." The dean continued to speak, but Yeshan, who was following him, lost his patience. He stepped forward directly, raised his hand twice, and hit Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei the back of the head. The next moment, the two of them stared, fainting with disbelief on their faces. Hayama quickly pulled off their socks and stuffed them into their mouths. He also pulled off their belts and tied their wrists. Then he bent down and exerted force, carrying one on each shoulder, and turned around and walked back. The dean's chief attendant's mouth was wide open the whole time, and he was so surprised that he didn't know what to say. It took him a long while before he realized what he was doing and hurriedly caught up with him. He subconsciously half bent down and was extremely respectful along the way. It is also a long-term follower, but this one is very skilled and very decisive in his actions. By the time they returned to Zhou's house, the book boy Mo Xiang had been kidnapped by Dongmei. Mo Xiang is only 12 or 13 years old. She is thin and has a sinister look on her face. At first glance, she is not a stable person. At this moment, when he saw that his master had also been kidnapped and was still half dead, he had some guesses in his mind. His face was pale, his eyes were rolling around, and he was looking around, as if he was looking for a chance to escape. But Mr. Cheng didn't give him a chance. He waved two wooden signs in front of Mo Xiang and asked in a cold voice, "Hurry up and tell the truth about this wooden sign, otherwise you will suffer a lot of pain today." In the end, he was sold into hard labor. Mo Xiang's eyes flickered and she whispered, "Sir, I don't understand what you are talking about." He wanted to deny it, but Dongmei kicked him down and then stepped on a certain spot on his back with her toes. Mo Xiang suddenly screamed in pain, as if countless ants were biting his internal organs. It was not severe pain, but numbness, itching, and pain, which was unbearable at all. Dongmei ignored his screams and said calmly, "Be honest and suffer less, otherwise if I put more force on my feet, your bones will be broken, and you will have to lie in bed eating, drinking and defecating for the rest of your life." Dean Zhou and several gentlemen looked at this with complicated expressions. They didn't know whether to be surprised that a woman was so powerful, or they couldn't bear to see a child being tortured like this. Mo Xiang could only endure it for a few breaths before shouting, I said, the young masters asked me to do it. He asked me to find a hawker to sell the wooden sign to the Li family. It is best to let Li Jiaran and Li Jiali took him to the exam. They didn't tell me there was something fishy about the wooden sign, but I secretly heard them say that they wanted to expose Li Jiaran and Li Jiali for cheating in the scholar examination room, so that they would never be able to study again. Dongmei was annoyed when she heard this and couldn't help but put more strength on her feet. Mo Xiang screamed louder and louder, "Ah, spare my life, don't blame me. If I don't listen to the young master, I will be beaten. I dare not go. Dong Mei put her foot down and raised her hand to lift up the book boy's clothes. Sure enough, he had many scars on his body. Some are dark and some are light, showing that they have been beaten frequently. Dean Zhou and Mr. Peng's expressions became increasingly ugly. Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei not only planned to frame their classmates, but they did not expect to be so vicious and mean to the book boy in private. Academy is a place for teaching and educating people. I dare not say that every student can be taught to have noble moral character like a sage, but at least he must have basic kindness. Obviously, Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei did not exist at all. Wake them up, I want to ask them what happened. Dean Zhou pointed at Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei, who were thrown to the door by Yeshan with a dark face. Everyone originally thought they were going to pour cold water on them to wake them up. As a result, Yeshan stepped forward, pulled the socks from their mouths, and then kicked them both in the stomach. Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng screamed in pain and woke up immediately. The two struggled to get up, only to realize that their hands were tied. Looking at the cold-faced dean and husband, as well as everyone in the Li family, they didn't understand anything. Things have been revealed. Mr. Peng, who had been teaching them for so long, couldn't bear it anymore and was the first to ask, Wang Sheng, Lu Kuei, your book boy has confessed. You instructed him to sell the wooden plaque with the article hidden to the Li family. You want to frame Li Jiaran and Li Jiali in the examination room. Why do you do this? No, no. He's talking nonsense, we don't know about this at all, Wang Sheng immediately retorted. Lu Kuei also came to his senses and shouted, yes, someone else must have bribed him and put the blame on us. The little book boy Mo Xiang was confused when he heard this. He was obviously just following his master's orders. Otherwise, he had no enmity with the Li family, so why would he frame Li Jiaran? No, no, young master, you can't do this. You were the one who asked me to go. You also gave me 10 taels of silver, 5 taels to the hawker in advance, and another 5 taels after the incident was completed. You didn't ask me to do this, so how can I have so much money to do this? Seeing that Dong Mei seemed to be raising her feet again, Mo Xiang was so frightened that she became even more arrogant. You guys often scold Li Jiaran behind his back, calling him a cripple. You also bought croton flour and wanted to add it to the food in the cafeteria, but you couldn't find the chance. Now the croton flour is still hidden in your box. Everyone gasped when they heard it, especially Li Lao-san, whose eyes were really red. Fortunately, there are many people in the cafeteria, and even at night, Aunt Wu, Dazu and other 3 families live in the wing next to the cafeteria. Otherwise, if there is a chance, something will be added to the food, the students will be hungry, and the sign of the canteen will be damaged. Dean Zhou almost trembled with his hands, pointed at the attendant, and asked him to go to the dormitory to find their luggage. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 513. Chapter 513, Leave No Consequences. Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei were betrayed by the book boy. They were so angry that they were so frightened that their calves trembled. No, we didn't mean it, we were just kidding. Wang Sheng still wanted to cover it up, but even he didn't believe this excuse. Soon, the dean's attendant came back with a palm-sized porcelain jar filled with light yellow bean powder. Mr. Chen knew a little about medicine. He lowered his head and smelled it, and the last trace of luck in his heart was gone. He sighed and said, "This is croton powder. Such a small can is enough for our entire academy to go to the toilet for 3 days. If you are weak, you may die." At this time, Dean Zhou, Mr. Peng, and Mr. Geng also completely hardened their hearts. If they said they only wanted to plot against the Li family once, it could be said that they had made a last-minute decision and made a mistake. But one after another, if one plan fails, there is another plan, which is to make up his mind to fight with the Li family to the end, and not care at all whether it will affect the academy. Such a person cannot be kept. Dean Zhou handed over his hand and said to Dong Mei, "Let them tell the truth, we must listen." Dong Mei immediately stepped forward and let Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng taste the pain that Mo Xiang suffered. Unexpectedly, the two of them were not even as good as the fragrance of ink. They cried so much that their noses and tears were all over their faces, and their bodies were all wet. Dong Mei withdrew her feet in disgust and rubbed them on the ground. Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei competed to confess. Wang Sheng was afraid that he would be a step too late, so he shouted, "Our Wang family has enmity with the Li family. Li Zhensheng is a white-eyed wolf. He eats our Wang family, drinks our Wang family, and finally discredits the Wang family, making our entire clan ashamed to go out to meet people." Lu Kuei also shouted, "My sister married the Yan family, and the Yan family was kicked out of Kyoto. My sister will also go back to her hometown with her, and she will never come back. I can't be angry." The two of them were a little nervous at first, but as they talked, they felt confident again. It seems that their revenge is to eliminate harm for the people, and it is not a wrong thing. The Li family did not want to waste their words arguing with them. After all, when it comes to the grievances between the Li family and the Wang Yan family, it cannot be explained clearly within an hour or two. Li Laosan just took the wooden sign and stepped forward to ask them, "Where did you get this wooden sign? You can't touch such exquisite workmanship at all. Someone must be helping you behind the scenes, or you are letting others act as swords made it." Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei looked at each other, and Wang Sheng insisted, "This brand was a plaything when I was a child. I saw it occasionally, so I took it out and used it. This is obviously a lie." Yashin and Dong Mei took turns to fix the two of them, but unfortunately they refused to change their story. Li Laoer could only signal Yashan and Dong Mei to step back, and finally said to Dean Zhou and others, "Dean, gentlemen, the matter is now clear. Our Li family will still investigate the matter behind it, but please ask the academy to deal with these two students as soon as possible." Mr. Cheng seemed to have been slapped twice in the face. Just now he was protecting these two little beasts, but he didn't expect that they would actually do evil things, not just one or two. At this moment, he stood up directly and said, "Dean, these two people must be expelled. The academy cannot allow such harm." Mr. Peng and Mr. Geng also nodded, "They must be fired, otherwise there will be endless troubles." Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng thought they would be able to overcome it with a few slaps, but they never expected to be expelled. The two of them were startled, and in the end, regardless of their embarrassment, they leaned forward like maggots, then hugged the dean's feet and begged desperately for mercy. "Dean, we know we were wrong, we of you, don't fire us. Dean, please forgive me, we are going to take the scholar examination soon, woohoo, we are expelled, where can we go to study, we were just joking, we didn't mean to harm anyone." Dean Zhou ignored them at all and ordered Mr. Cheng, "Lock them to the discipline hall, invite their families over tomorrow, summon all the teachers and students in the college, suspend classes and hold a meeting. Everyone must take warning." "Yes, Dean." Mr. Cheng called his chief to help, and took Wang Sheng, Lu Kuei and the little book boy out together. Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei wanted to cry, but were quickly silenced. The room finally became quiet, which made the atmosphere a little awkward. At this time, the mother-in-law beside Mrs. Zhou came over to greet her and said, "Dean, Madam said that the banquet is ready. Please take a seat with your guests." Dean Zhou coughed twice and stood up to invite the Li family and Mr. Wen. "It's getting late and it's already dinner time. If you don't mind, you can stay and have a light meal. That woman has been with Mrs. Zhou since she was a child. After she came as a dowry, She also married into the Zhou family, and she was almost half a master. At this moment, she said with a smile, "Dean, you don't know something. Your distinguished guest will definitely not dislike tonight's dishes." Madam was having a headache preparing what dishes, but 4 large food boxes were sent from the cafeteria. We just put it on the table. Dean Zhou's face immediately improved a lot after hearing this. The Li family's actions are so meticulous and thoughtful that people have to praise him. Seriously calculating, the Li family also saved the Academy's life today. Otherwise, as Mr. Li said, when trouble breaks out in the examination room, no matter which party suffers, the reputation of Luoan Academy will be ruined. Thank you so much for your understanding of justice and taking the overall situation into consideration. Today we were supposed to serve wine to say thank you, but we didn't expect that it cost your family money again. Dean Zhou cupped his hands and thanked them, then led Li Laoer and others to the flower hall. The 3 brothers of the Li family and Yashi Wen naturally had to say a few polite words. For a while, everyone got over the embarrassment just now and became friendly and lively again. Li Laoer asked Jiaran and Jiali to go back to the school on the pretext of having evening classes. Not to mention the drinking and joking at Dean Zhou's house, just that Jiaran and Jiali hurried back to the cafeteria, took a bite of food, and then hurried back to the school building. Because Mr. Peng is also at the drinking table, students will have to review their homework for tonight's evening class. This is like the evening self-study in school in the previous life, which was still without teacher supervision. How could the students let go of such a good opportunity? Although they didn't dare to run, jump, and make noise, they could still do some small tricks and whisper. The students sitting in front of and around Jiaran all got along well with him. At this moment, the student in the front row came up to Jiaran and said mysteriously, "Jiaran, do you know? Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng seem to have committed a crime and they were taken away." Jiaran opened the book and simply responded, "Yes, I know." "Oh, what do you know?" The student was full of gossip and didn't share it, so he closed Jiaran's book in a hurry. He lowered his voice and continued, "I mean, they were tied up, gagged, and carried away. The man who captured them was more than a foot tall and had a huge back and waist. I heard that the patrol team didn't dare to see this man come forward and stop it." This time, before Jiaran could say anything, several students nearby actively supported him. "Is it true? How did I hear that they were sleeping in the thatched pavilion over there in the forest, and were dragged into the forest by wild beasts? Yes, I also heard that they were eaten by wild beasts. I heard that only their clothes were found, and none of their bones were left behind. Oh, it's so scary. What do you think the Academy says? Is it going to raise the courtyard wall? Someone just came to inform me that there will be a general meeting of the hospital tomorrow. Will this be the point?" Everyone was talking lively. Jiaran, the only person in the know, found it funny to hear that these people were getting more and more outrageous. He thought for a while, and in order to avoid being complained by them tomorrow, he simply revealed a few words: "Don't make wild guesses. Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng's lives are not in danger. They were sent to the discipline hall. The specific reason will be announced tomorrow. You will know during the conference." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 514. Chapter 514. There is no room for negotiation. Send it to the discipline hall. 5 simple words immediately ignited the flames of gossip among several students. "Jiaran, don't talk in circles, tell me quickly, what's going on? Yes, what mistake did those 2 guys make? Were they beaten, with a board or a whip? Were they howling like a ghost or a wolf?" They were talking lively here, and other students joined in. I heard that Jiaran had some definite news, and everyone wanted to ask more questions. Speaking of which, Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei were not very popular, and almost no one in the school had any good friends with them. Now they are unlucky and have no intention of caring. Instead, everyone is excited. Jiaran should not say anything casually, lest he ruin the arrangements of his elders. Hence, he shut his mouth tightly and did not reveal a single word. Fortunately, the gentleman with patrol discipline heard the commotion and came over, scolded him a few times, and the school became quiet. The small courtyard of the Li family outside the college was extremely lively tonight because Li Zhensheng, Li Laoer and Mr. Wen were staying overnight. Ji Yin quietly took out another jade melon, which was still cold and refreshing. Li Zhensheng and the others were all 3/3 drunk just now. Now they were sitting under the eaves of the corridor, blowing the night breeze, and eating 2 pieces of cool and sweet jade melon, and they were completely sober. Mrs. Li hugged her granddaughter, waved the cattail leaf fan to drive away mosquitoes, and asked her about the previous incident carefully. I heard that the 2 students had confessed and had thought of many ways to harm the Li family, but they had not found a chance to implement them. She really didn't know what to say. After a while, Mrs. Li sighed and said, "Why are teenagers so bold and have such evil intentions?" Li Laoer comforted him, "Mom, don't get angry with these people. They are not worth it. Since they have done bad things, they must be punished. In the future, they will not be able to study or take scientific examinations. I am afraid they will regret it." Li Zhensheng also said, "There must be someone behind Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei. Lu Kuei's family are just in-laws of the Yan family. The Yan family has also left the new capital. They have nothing to rely on, just ordinary merchants. I don't know, but those people from the Wang family are still determined to give up." Mr. Wen nodded and said, "The 2 boys are very strict this time, so we can't question them in front of the dean, but the days are long, and there will always be opportunities in the future." Ji Yin rubbed the little fox's head and agreed with her uncle's words. If there is someone behind the 2 students, it is most likely the Wang family. However, the 2 students entered Luoan Academy before Mr. Wang returned to Beijing, so the person behind this might be Mr. Wang. But Wang Laosan is already crazy. Could it be that someone is using his name to continue to harm the Li family, with the idea that if it is exposed, the blame will be placed on Wang Laosan, so that no one can care about it? Maybe I ate too much at night, so I just thought about it for a while, and then I yawned. Mrs. Li saw her, said a few words, and urged everyone to go and have a rest. On the second day, at 3 o'clock in the morning, someone from the college came to report the news. Mr. Wen specifically asked for leave and did not return to the city. He accompanied the 3 brothers of the Li family and went to the academy together. Ji Yin asked her grandma to take her to watch the excitement. Mrs. Li was also worried about it, so she hurried to the canteen, thinking it would be convenient to inquire about the news. Unexpectedly, the dean actually chose the cafeteria as the place to hold the meeting. "I guess I want to finish the meeting so that the students can eat. After all, class continues after dinner." Mrs. Li is a first-grade imperial concubine, and Ji Yin is a princess. Even if they do not intend to use their status to oppress others, at such times, as long as they show up, the dean and others will have to salute. So, as soon as the grandfather and grandson arrived in the cafeteria, they were greeted by Zhao Yuruhi, and Tao Hongying entered the private room. In the private room, there were 2 buckets of ice, a bottle of fruit drink, and a plate of snacks. Tao Hongying lowered her voice and said, "Even if Mom doesn't come, I have to go back to invite you. I didn't expect the gentleman to hold a meeting here. Mom will sit down first with the good news, and we will have dinner with Jiaran and the others at noon." Mrs. Li nodded and said, "Let's check the situation at noon. They are all family members. Don't worry about going to work. Ji Yin and I are in this room. If anything happens, Shuiling will go find you." Grandma He and Shuiling Shuiyun also nodded quickly. Grandma He assured, "Don't worry, Madam 3 and Madam 4, we are still here to serve you." Zhao Yuru and Tao Hongying then went to the kitchen. Today, in addition to preparing lunch for the students, they also have to prepare refreshments for the dean and gentlemen. Soon, hundreds of students gathered over. Everyone's face was full of excitement and curiosity, and they didn't understand what happened in the academy. But they were not allowed to guess for long. Dean Zhou brought several gentlemen and led the three brothers Li Zhensheng and Wen Yuxi in together. Not long after they sat down, Dean Zhou's entourage brought in three more people. Ji Yan was lying at the door of the elegant room, holding the little fox and watching the fun. After a closer look, one of the three people was actually an acquaintance. This acquaintance is none other than Li Yang's brother-in-law, Mr. Zhou, who helped design the hot spring valley. She quickly told her grandma, which made Mrs. Li come to the door and asked in confusion, "Why is Mr. Zhou here?" Similarly, Mr. Zhou stepped into the dining hall and frowned when he saw hundreds of students. The Lu family came to him in the morning and said that their child had made a mistake in the academy and asked him to come with him to help intercede. He didn't think much and just followed. After all, when the father-in-law's family moved out, he was entrusted with taking care of the Lu family. The Lu family has a simple population. Only the couple owns a shop in the city and the younger son is studying in college. When they were walking around on weekdays, the Lu family and his wife behaved well, so he agreed. But now it seems that what happened today is not as simple as he thought. When he saw the three brothers of the Li family and Yuxi Wen again, he was even more surprised, and his heart sank for a moment. He quickly stepped forward and saluted, "Uncle Li, Mr. Li, Mr. Li, and Yuxi Wen, why are you all here?" The Li family treats Li Yang as a family member. Mr. Zhou is Li Yang's brother-in-law and has been of great help to their new village. The three brothers Li Zhensheng looked at each other, not wanting Mr. Zhou to get involved. As for Yuxi Wen, he already had a good relationship with Mr. Zhou, otherwise he would not have directly invited Mr. Zhou to Sujintan to help design the reconstruction drawings of the valley. The four of them immediately had a tacit understanding. Li Laoer took a step forward and asked straight to the point, "Master Zhou, who are you here for today, Lu Kui or Wang Sheng?" "Lu Kui," Mr. Zhou said quickly. "The Lu family are in-laws of the Yan family. When the Yan family left, my wife and I were entrusted to take care of her." Li Laoer nodded and said, "Lu Kui designed to frame Jiren for cheating in the examination room. It was exposed. He will be expelled today. There is no room for negotiation. Mr. Zhou, you should go back." Master Zhou was stunned for a moment, then changed his expression, glared at Lu Kui's father, and then bowed deeply to everyone in the Li family. "Uncle Li, I'm really sorry for today. I will definitely do it someday. Come to apologize." "Master Zhou, you don't have to be like this. Anyone who doesn't know is not guilty." Li Laoer gave him a hand. Mr. Zhou stood up, said goodbye to Dean Zhou and others, and then turned around and left without any hesitation. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 515. Chapter 515. Take this as a warning and take care of yourself. Lu Kui's father, known as Lu Yuanwei, was so anxious that he tried to persuade him to stay, but was stopped by the dean's attendant. "All the students are both hearing and seeing, and there is not a single fool who can come to the academy to study." The few words Li Laoer just said just dropped countless big firecrackers in their hearts, and now they have exploded. They kept their mouths shut to ensure that the blazing fire of gossip would not burst out, but the smoke came out from their noses, eyes, and ears. What does it mean to frame Jiren? What is cheating in the examination room? What does it mean to be kicked out? At this time, Lu Kui, Wang Sheng, and the little book boy were brought in. The three of them were all and gagged. One night plus half a day, they had no food, no water, and no sleep. At this moment, his hair was disheveled, his eyes were green and black, and his clothes were dirty. He was really embarrassed. Suddenly being lifted up, when they looked up, they saw hundreds of classmates' glaring eyes. Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng really wanted to find a crack in the ground and crawl through. Turning around again, they saw their father. The two of them were struggling even more fiercely, whimpering, not knowing whether they were asking for help or mercy. Dean Josu was unwilling to let hundreds of students be burned to black charcoal by the fire of the 8 diagrams, so he did not hesitate and directly took out 2 safety signs and demonstrated them himself in front of the students. When 2 small white pieces of paper fell out of the sign, all the students gasped. Mr. Cheng said with a cold face and in a deep voice what happened yesterday, and finally said, Lu Kuei, Wang Sheng, and the book boy Mo Xiang have confessed and explained clearly. These 2 brands and a jar of croton powder are the physical evidence. Although they planned to plot against their classmates twice and failed to complete it, this kind of behavior is simply extremely bad. The dean and all our gentlemen have unanimously decided to expel Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng from the academy from now on. Students from the Wang family and Lu family will never be admitted. And we will inform all the academies around Kyoto about this matter as soon as possible. For a while, the room was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. The students did not expect that Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng would be so bold and malicious. I didn't expect that the academy not only expelled people, but also informed other academies. This is a determined decision to drive Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng out of Kyoto. If they want to continue studying and take scientific examinations, they can only go to remote state capitals. Let's not talk about how the Wang family and Lu family settled in the remote state capital. I just want to say that the teachers and academic style there are definitely not as good as those in Zindu. He even said that there is no airtight wall in the world. Wouldn't the academies in remote state capitals know what is happening today? In the final analysis, Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng have basically cut off the path of studying and taking scientific examinations. Some students felt relieved, some felt pitiful, and most felt that Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng deserved their crimes. The Li family has a grudge against the other 2 families, and it makes sense that they would target Li Jiaran, but who did the academy and all the classmates offend whom? We almost had our reputation ruined and lost a place to study. The person coming from the Wang family this time is Wang Sheng's father, Wang Yuanzhong, who is also a branch of the Wang family. He is a minor official who usually works in Honglu Temple. Honglu Temple is responsible for receiving envoys from various countries and attending ceremonial ceremonies. It was fine when we were in Kyoto, but now only half of Tianwu is left. The emperor and the court are forced to stay in the south of the Yangtze River, which envoys from other countries come to pay homage. Therefore, Honglu Temple is half dead, and Wang Yuanzhong can only rely on a meager salary to barely keep the family decent and have enough food and clothing. It was arranged by my family that my son Wang Sheng came to Luoyang to study, and he was happy about it for a long time. Now seeing this, he still doesn't understand. There is no such thing as free steamed buns in the world. Even if someone says they don't need money, if someone believes it and swallows it, the hook hidden in the bun will be exposed. The whole family has been hanging on the hook for a long time without knowing it. When a son is sent to an academy to study, he becomes someone else's and must listen to someone else's orders. Now that the matter has been exposed, it is the son's future that is ruined, and what is worrying is that he, his biological father, has nothing to do with the family. His face turned blue and red and black, and he almost endured a mouthful of blood from his throat. He bowed his head and saluted the dean, and said, "No matter what the reason is, my son did something wrong and was kicked out of the academy. We have nothing to say goodbye." Having said that, he stepped forward and untied the ropes from his son's hands and feet, not even forgetting the little book boy, and took them away without looking back. Yuan Lu had no allies outside, and he wanted to yell angrily, but this was his territory. Looking at it, no one was on his side, so he was really weak. He could only endure a breath, untied his son's rope, and then pulled his son away. Dean Zhou breathed a sigh of relief, looked at all the students, and said, "For today's matter, everyone will write an article and hand it to their respective teachers tomorrow morning. If a man wants to manage his family, govern his country, and bring peace to the world, he must first cultivate his character. In the future, anyone who dares to imitate Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng will suffer the same fate. I hope you will take this as a warning and take care of yourself." "Yes, Dean." All the students quickly lowered their heads and saluted, and responded respectfully. Dean Zhou, Li Laoer, Wen Yushi, and others handed over their hands and said politely, "Uncle, Mr. Wen, if you are not busy, can you stay for a cup of tea?" Li Laoer said quickly, "No, I have disturbed the dean a lot in the past 2 days. We still have trivial matters in the city, so I will go back." "Okay, then I'll see you off." After saying that, Dean Zhou and several gentlemen walked out accompanied by Li Laoer and others. The cafeteria was quiet for a few moments, and then things exploded. "Oh my God, Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng are so cruel, how could they come up with such a scary method?" One student was so surprised that he even shouted out the dialect of his hometown. His classmate also wiped the sweat from his forehead, nodded and said, "Yeah, what do they think? As for that, we are all classmates studying together, what kind of hatred is this? With so much croton powder, we are really tricked. The toilets in the college are going to be robbed like crazy, and the stench will definitely fill the sky. Oh, stop talking, we have to eat soon. This is all a trivial matter. Throw away the peace charm as soon as possible, this thing is too dangerous and may be tampered with." "Yes, yes, throw it away quickly. We are just reading a book and we are not in the court, but we still have to go through such intrigues. It's really hard to distinguish between good and evil in people's hearts. No, I want a pot of fruit drink to calm the panic. Yes, give me a bottle too, with more ice." The students were talking a lot, and somehow their surprise and fear were transferred to the cold and sweet fruit drink. So, before it was afternoon, the honey and passion fruit drink with ice was sold out. Fortunately, Xiaoyu brought the ice bucket over early because she wanted to watch the fun. Jiaran was also surrounded by his classmates at the moment. Compared to others, those of them who spent time with Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng day and night were a little more angry. "I thought Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng were just a little arrogant at most, saying a few unpleasant words from time to time. Who would have thought that they could be so vicious?" The greedy little fat man was most afraid. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 516. Chapter 516, Second Uncle, Let's Join Forces. If Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng had succeeded and actually put croton powder in the food in the cafeteria, he would probably have the worst diarrhea. Because he eats the most at every meal, and his life may be in jeopardy. Another classmate also said with emotion, "People say that biting dogs don't bark, but Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng bark quite happily on weekdays. I didn't expect them to have such deep scheming." Jiaran nodded and sighed, "I thought they just disliked me a little. We are all classmates, so just be patient and don't care about them." Who would have thought that they would act so arrogantly, not only wanting to cut off my path to scientific research, but also making life difficult for the entire academy. Suddenly, a student who was usually very calm saluted Tong Jiaran and said, "Jiaran, we want to thank you. Your family discovered this matter in advance. If you wanted to fight back against Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng in the examination room, it would be easy, but you didn't do that. Instead, you chose to save our academy. You really understand the righteousness." Jiaran quickly waved his hands and said in a low voice, "No, this is what I should do. Seriously speaking, these two people also wanted to punish me, and they almost brought trouble to the academy and everyone. If you don't blame me, I am already very happy." Okay, Fatty's classmate stopped them from thanking each other and said, "Instead of thanking each other like this, why don't you two do something practical? You can take care of today's lunch." Several classmates nearby also started cheering. Jiaran said, "Sit down, my fourth aunt is in the cafeteria today. I'll ask her to work hard and cook some good dishes." "Your fourth aunt is the chef of Cyclamen's private kitchen? Last time I went home for the holiday, my uncle said that I couldn't even get a head start." The fat classmate was so excited that his eyes were shining. He kept urging Jiaran, hurry up, please make sure Auntie prepares two good dishes for us. When I get home, I will make sure to feast on my uncle, so that I don't have to worry about him always talking in my ears and eating again. What a good thing." Everyone laughed when they heard it, and the noise was very lively. Jiaran got up and went to the kitchen. Orange Mrs. Li and Jiyan had already moved over and were talking to Zhao Yuru and Tao Hongying. They were originally worried about Jiaran's classmates complaining about him and the Li family. Although Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng were not at fault for this matter, without the personal grudges between the Li family and the Wang family and the Yan family, I am afraid that this matter would not have been brought to the academy. Fortunately, Jiaran came over and said that the classmates did not complain at all, they just wanted to try the private kitchen dishes. Tao Hongying immediately responded happily, "I originally thought that your uncle and the others were going to have lunch with Dean Zhou and others. I prepared a lot of ingredients, but they dispersed. Anyway, I have sorted it out, and I will open a table for you and your classmates." But Jiaran quickly waved his hand, not wanting his aunt to be too tired. "Fourth aunt, thank you for your hard work. Just cook two dishes for the classmates to try. In addition, we will make a set meal, and there will be a lot of dishes. The weather is hot. Auntie, please take a rest and don't worry about me so much." Hearing what her nephew said, Tao Hongying was particularly happy that he was so filial and sensible, so she said, "Go and accompany your classmates. Remember to sit in the private room. You don't have to worry about these little things." Jiaran had no choice but to go back. Mrs. Li and Jiyan couldn't help much, so they went back to the small courtyard. Li Zhensheng and Mr. Wen had something to do and went back to the city. Li Laoer didn't know why, but he stayed behind. When he saw his mother and niece coming back, Li Laoer welcomed them and talked under the shady eaves. "Mom, last night my eldest brother, my third brother, and Mr. Wen slept together. We all felt that the children at home should not study hard and should be taken out to see the world. Jiaran and brother Li will definitely take the scientific examination and become officials in the future. Brother Mao is still young and is uncertain. For the time being the three of them can wait. Jia 11 and Jia An are obviously not good at studying. We will have to find another way out for them in the future. They have been in the academy for so long and are much more sensible and stable, but their studies are average and they mostly play. How about we let them take leave 2 or 3 times a year from now on and follow the family's fleet south to broaden their horizons and gain insights? What do you think?" Old Mrs. Li pulled the cattail leaf fan and fanned twice hard, but she still couldn't get rid of her anxiety. Actually, she thought a lot last night. When the children are older, she can no longer hold them all under her wings like an old hen, longing for a hint of wind and rain. Even if she wanted to do so, her wings would be too small. She is getting older and does not have so much energy and ability to continue to protect the children. Just like this time, if the granddaughter hadn't been clever and discovered something strange, who would have thought that the children could be framed by others in the academy? The Li family is no longer a small farming family, and the dangers the children encounter are no longer small things like falling through ice holes, being bitten by dogs and cat paws, or climbing trees to dig out bird eggs but not being able to lay them. But it is a major event that can easily end your future or involve the lives of many people. It may be discovered once or twice at home, but who can guarantee that you can escape safely every time? We can only be cruel and let them go out and experience more wind and rain, so they will not be afraid of wind and rain. It can be said that she is very aware of the coolness and wildness of the wind and rain. She has worked hard for most of her life. She can't bear it. I can't bear to see the children suffer. Li Lao knew what my mother was thinking, so he stopped trying to persuade her. After all, he couldn't bear it. Ji Yan sat aside, holding the little fox in his arms and blinking his big eyes. He was in favor of letting his brothers go out to practice. Let's not talk about anything else, let's just say that Ji Yi and Lu Yang have gone south with the boat several times alone, and they are much more prudent now than before. Two brothers, Jiaxi and Jian, have been very smart since childhood. Unfortunately, they are not good at reading. When it comes to naughty things, they are first-class masters. Perhaps if they go out for a walk and have a look, they can find a suitable path for them. It is unrealistic in itself for the 7 boys of the Li family to want all of them to study, take exams, and become officials. But she can't say this right now. Grandma will definitely understand it, so she won't add fuel to the fire. With this in mind, she approached her second uncle and whispered, "Second uncle, can we open a flower shop together?" Flower shop? Li Lauer was originally thinking about his nephews going out for training, but he couldn't react at the moment and was confused. Ji Yan rarely saw his shrewd second uncle looking like this, so he chuckled. Li Lauer came to his senses and reached out to rub his niece's hair, smiling helplessly. Ji Yan hurriedly talked to his second uncle, "Second uncle, I have a lot of good flowers there. It's a pity that I only display them on days when my mother cooks private dishes. Should my second uncle open a flower shop and move all those famous flowers past? I heard from Uncle Wen that many high-ranking officials like flowers. From now on, our flower shop will only sell medium and low-grade flowers. We will keep all the good flowers for viewing, but not for sale. Then those high-ranking officials who like famous flowers will come to our shop to see the flowers. Whoever is nice to the second uncle will be allowed to see the flowers. Are they all nice to the second uncle? Also, I will learn medicine and treat diseases from Grandpa Zhang in the future. I want to find medicinal seeds and medicinal seedlings. Those high-ranking officials must have a lot of people at home. If they want famous flowers, let them exchange medicinal seeds and vegetable seedlings. Okay." The more Li Lauer listened, the brighter his eyes became. This is not a flower shop. It is obviously a good way to broaden your network of contacts. As my niece said, there are many officials who like flowers in the court. Whoever comes to the store to enjoy the flowers should sit down and have a cup of tea. You have to talk to him over tea, and even owe him a favor in order to let him part with a pot of famous flowers, right? After several visits like this, he has more acquaintances and a wider network, and he has successfully integrated into the court. By then, it will not be like this now. Looking at the court, he will only have 2 acquaintances, Wen Yushi and Lu Haiheng, looking embarrassed. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 517. Chapter 517. The Veritable Master of the Home Mansion. Okay, Li Lauer happily agreed, "Second uncle doesn't want any money, I just want to be the shopkeeper for you." Ji Yan didn't persist, but it wasn't because she was greedy for money. In this flower shop, the first priority is to expand the network of people for the second uncle. The second is to buy more medicinal materials, medicinal seedlings and seeds, and the least important is to make money. At the end of the year, do the math and use half of it to buy some paper, ink, pens, inkstones, or clothes and accessories for your second uncle. The second uncle must be happy that his niece is filial. The big one and the small one got together and talked about everything from the location of the flower shop to the repairs to the manpower. Even Mrs. Li, who was struggling with her grandchildren, couldn't help but add a few words. That night, the boys came home from school for dinner. Seeing that his father stayed, Jiren thought that his father cared about him and was worried that he would be complained by his classmates, so he was very touched. Who would have thought that his father was thinking about the flower shop? Early on the next morning, Jiyan changed into a beautiful dress, took Grandma He and Shuiling, and followed her second uncle into the city. Both uncles and nephews agreed that although the flower shop sells flowers, it is just like stealing a book and not calling it stealing, but calling it stealing. Buying a Buddha statue is not called buying but calling it please, so when they sell flowers, they cannot call them selling, they must call them rewarding. Flower. Therefore, the flower shop cannot really be opened in a shop on a shopping street. It must choose a place that is elegant, quiet, and high style. After all, from now on, this flower shop will not only sell flowers, but also be a place for the Li family to make connections and entertain friends and colleagues. So, when the uncle and nephew entered the city, they went straight to the junction of the east and south of the city. This is the place where civil and military officials must pass when they go to court, and it is also the favorite place for the officials to stay during every scientific examination. The streets adjacent to the two cities are very lively. There are calligraphy and painting shops, folk art gardens, tea houses, etc. on both sides of the streets. Over the years, the literary style is very strong. Moreover, the people living nearby are either the powerful and high-ranking officials in the East City or the families of small wealthy families in the south of the city. There are also few traders and foot soldiers who come and go. This is the most suitable place for a flower shop that the uncle and nephew could think of. What a pity, they like this place, and so do others. The carriage drove around for a full hour and found 2 or 3 people, but none found a suitable yard. At last, when passing by the end of the street, Jiyan spotted a place, but there was a seal in front of the door. Zhang Feng, who was driving the carriage, ran to a nearby tea house and stuffed a little money into the boy's hand. When he came back, he said, "Uncle, Miss, the tea house boy said that this yard was the yard of a prisoner last year. It has been sealed and has not been issued sell. The property deed should be at the Hubei Yamen." Jiyan thought for a moment and then said, "Second uncle, let's go to the Marquis mansion. I just want to go to the housekeeper to borrow a gardener. In the future, when we open a flower shop, we can't do it without a good gardener. Let's grow flowers. I'm afraid not even the last one will be left." Li Lauer coughed dryly, blushed slightly, and quickly responded. Once before, he took a fancy to one of the potted flowers removed by Cyclamen, begged for it from his niece, and took it back to Mr. Wen's small courtyard to raise. He liked it so much that he watered it often, but one day the flower fell down and died. Later he found out that the flower liked drought, so watering it once every half-month was enough. Watering it too much would cause root rot. In this way, finding a good gardener is really more important than finding a good location. It is hot in summer, and there is not much work in the home mansion. Especially when the master goes on an expedition and leaves for 2 or 3 months, the slaves have plenty to eat and drink, and they all like to be lazy. After all, if they just want to fight, want to please their master, and want to show their face in front of their master and pursue a future, then the master must be at home. Otherwise, it would be a waste of efforts to wink at a blind man. The housekeeper was enjoying the cool air in his small courtyard, wearing only a pair of shorts and a jacket, shaking a cattail leaf fan in his hand and gnawing on a green melon. It's not that there's no fruit in the house, but he just has a special liking for cucumbers, so when he bites them, he feels particularly interesting. At this time, the boy who was serving him came and reported, "Butler, Uncle Li and the princess are here." The housekeeper was startled and sat up directly. He called the boy to find him some clothes. He also threw away the cucumber in his hand, quickly put on his clothes and hurried forward. Jiyan doesn't come to the home mansion often, but in the home mansion, she has her own courtyard, but she has never lived there even once. In fact, the Marquis had already left a message. Not to mention all the servants in the home mansion, even the whole of Zindu knew that the Marquis had given the entire home mansion to Jiyan, his adopted daughter. She is truly the mistress of the home mansion. At this moment, in the flower hall in the front yard, Jiyan directly took the main seat, while Li Laoer took the guest seat. The maids, dressed like butterflies, served tea and snacks, fearing to neglect the young master. Jiyan was eating snacks when the housekeeper came in, and a maid was slowly fanning her beside her. The chief steward hurriedly saluted, and finally stepped forward to take the fan from the maid, and asked with a smile, "Why do the princess and uncle have time to come here today? The palace just rewarded a basket of grapes, and I still want to come here when the afternoon is cooler. Send it to the princess for a fresh meal." Jiyan smiled and said, "Okay, Uncle Housekeeper, it just so happens that I want to eat grapes recently. The grapes on my grape rack are not ripe yet and are very sour. In addition, the melon garden in our village will open in a few days. I asked Uncle Dashan to send some jasper melons and golden fruits. The housekeeper will see which family the Marquis has a courtesy with, and he will give them as needed. Although my adoptive father is not at home, I still need to keep moving. Don't ask them to help me, just don't hold me back." At this moment, in the flower hall, there are only 2 maids standing at the door to serve, and the rest are family members. There is no fear of spreading the good news like this. The housekeeper nodded repeatedly when he heard this, and praised. What the princess said is that many people are growing jade melons this year, but the taste is definitely not as good as our Sujintan ones. Our broken gold beach is a geomantic treasure land. Even the emperor likes to eat the melons we grow. Whoever family you send this to as a gift will be extremely happy." Li Laoer also smiled and said, "I think everyone thinks so. In the past few days, someone has asked Mr. Lu to ask me about it. He has asked me to buy 10 or 8 cars. I don't know what to say. I will give some to the emperor in a few days, and the rest will be divided among each family. It is estimated that there will not be much left, and there will not be 10 or 8 carts for takeout. There was already a drought, so the villagers carried water on their shoulders and watered it 3 times, just to save so many acres of land." After chatting for a few more words, Jiyan got down to business. "Uncle Steward, my second uncle and I want to open a flower shop. We are short of a skilled and reliable gardener. Is there a suitable one in the Marquis mansion? We also have our eye on a yard, but it's said to be a prisoner's yard. The gate is sealed, and the title deed is in the Hubuyaman. Is there any way to buy it?" Hearing this, the chief steward immediately became energetic. A slave is not afraid of his master's orders, but he is afraid that his master will not order him. No work, no errands, just no use, let alone the need to exist. Finally, a good opportunity for performance came to the door. The butler immediately said, "Oh, the princess is right. There is a gardener in our house, his skills are quite good, and the family has been growing flowers for generations. Our Lord Marquis is not at home, and there is no mistress. There has been no flower viewing party for many years, and there is no need to take care of the garden." The old slave felt that it was a pity for the gardener. He just gave it to the princess to help, and the gardener was put to good use. And if the princess wants to have a flower shop, someone needs to do the chores, right? The gardener also has a son who is 20 years old. He can help the gardener and do some rough work. The gardener's wife and daughter-in-law are also good at cooking, washing, and serving tea and water. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 518. Chapter 518. Dislike from my mother. I have to say that people who can climb to the position of housekeeper have much more flexible and smart minds than ordinary people. The housekeeper arranged the gardener's affairs with just a few words. Then, he talked about the yard again. The kind of yard that the uncle and the princess are interested in are usually kept in the archives of the Ministry of Household Affairs, copied by age, and then handed over for sale. Of course, if you want to buy in advance, it's not impossible to come down. In this way, the uncle and the princess took the old slave with them. Let's go to the Hubuyaman together. The old slave took the marquis's name card and went in to ask how much the yard cost. If you can buy it, just buy it directly, okay? Good. Okay, thank you, steward. Of course I am happy with the good news. The gardener has decided that if the yard is purchased again, the preliminary preparations will be basically completed. As for famous flowers, she has too much stuffed into her space. She needs to move it out quickly so that she can relax a little. Soon, the chief steward gave a few words to the stewards of the house, picked up the basket of grapes, and followed the Lee family's carriage. In half an hour, the Hubuyaman will have a lunch break, and all the squad rooms are very lazy. The clerks casually drank a cup of tea and chatted, and then dispersed. The chief steward took the marquis's name card and went in, and within a moment he led two minor officials out. The two clerks were very polite. They stood under the car window and saluted Li Lauer and Ji Yin. Then the housekeeper took them to hire a carriage on the street and went straight to the small courtyard in the southeast of Zindu. The seal on the front of the small courtyard is difficult to remove, but the back door can be accessed. Everyone entered through the back door. Li Lauer and Ji Yin only looked around before settling on this place. The small courtyard has a 2.5 entry layout. There is half a yard at the front door, where carriages and sedan chairs can be parked. Entering the second door, the patio is very spacious, enough for both flower beds and flower stands. There are 3 rooms in the main room and 3 rooms in the west wing. It is convenient to entertain ordinary guests, stay with the gardener's family, or move potted flowers to take shelter on stormy days. Finally, entering the courtyard, the 3 west wing rooms can be used for daily living, and the 3 main rooms are reserved for occasional banquets with distinguished guests. The most desirable thing is that there is a moon gate on the east wall. Through the moon gate, there is a small garden, about the size of an acre of land. Ji Yin's first reaction is that this is perfect for a greenhouse. Think about winter, when the grass and trees are withered and the snow is falling. What if there was a greenhouse as warm as spring, full of flowers? The guests sat among the flowers, admiring the flowers, drinking a cup of tea and chatting. Absolutely no one can resist such enjoyment and temptation. The 2 clerks received instructions from their superiors and were particularly polite to Uncle Li and the princess. Hearing that they had reserved this courtyard, they said that they could go through the formalities immediately. The price is very cheap, only 800 taels, which is almost a breaking price. You must know that this place is very close to the East City. Officials who need to go to court, or the second son of a wealthy family, all prefer this location. Such a yard is priced at 2,000 taels and can be sold in the blink of an eye. Li Lauer is an earl and needs to go to court. According to the rules, he cannot do business himself or compete with the people for profits. Ji Yin is the princess. She is young, so no one may care about her, but she still needs to be careful, so the yard is named under Tao Hongying's name. Everyone returned to the Hubuyaman. Ji Yin used the hidden compartment in the car as a cover to actually take out the banknotes and a bag of broken silver, and asked Zhang Feng and the chief steward to go through the formalities. In addition, Li Lauer also asked Zhang He to run errands and go to Cyclamen to get a banquet. Just in time, Zhang Feng and the housekeeper came out with the house deed, and the boy from Cyclamen also arrived with a big food box. The 2 clerks and their superiors were very surprised to receive 30 taels of silver. I didn't expect that there would be a banquet at Cyclamen. I can have a good lunch, of course I'm even happier. They have done a lot of work for the nobles before, but most of them are bossy. Not to mention the benefits, it would be nice if they don't get scolded. There are not many people who are as generous and considerate as the Li family. It's hard to say. They will still look forward to more visits from the Li family in the future. Old Mrs. Li has been a little distracted all day long. To be honest, her granddaughter has rarely been away from her for so long when she has grown so old. At one moment she was worried that her granddaughter would be hot and thirsty, and at the next she was worried that her son would lose her granddaughter. There are many kidnappers and bad people on the street. My granddaughter is beautiful and cute. What if she is taken away? Tao Hongying was worried that her mother-in-law would be at home alone, fearing that she would not eat well, so she came back from the canteen early in the afternoon, and sure enough she saw that her mother-in-law had only eaten half a bowl of porridge. When she heard her mother-in-law say that she was worried about her daughter being abducted, she couldn't help but tell the truth. Mom, as the old saying goes, a child with crooked melons, cracked dates and jujubes is a treasure in your eyes. Fu Niuer is very good, but maybe when the kidnapper sees Fu Niuer, he will still dislike her. After all, she is so fat. She can run away even if she wants to be picked up, but she can't even carry her. Besides, even carrying her back is a waste of food. The food needed to raise her alone is enough to support 3 skinny children. This is really my mother, every word I say is disgusting. Shui Yun and Wen Juan covered their mouths and couldn't help but laugh. Mrs. Li also pinched her daughter-in-law while laughing, and said angrily, "My granddaughter is good in everything except being fat, so why is no one abducting her? If you are so disgusted, don't be Fu Niuer's mother, adopt her to you. She can wake up from her dreams with laughter." Tao Hongying pretended to be pinched and hugged her mother-in-law's arm. She complained that her mother-in-law was partial and only loved her granddaughter but not her daughter-in-law. Mrs. Li almost had her hair knocked out of her bun, and she laughed and cursed, "You and Fu Niuer are really close friends, but my hair doesn't suit your eyes." Tao Hongying chuckled, took the silver comb from her head, sat behind her mother-in-law, and combed her hair again. At the time of excitement, the carriage entering the city came back. Jiyan ran in from the door with the snacks from Julian Zai in her hand and sweat beads on her forehead, shouting, "Grandma, I'm back, I brought you something delicious." Maybe she didn't see the threshold. She tripped and rolled in. Everyone was startled. Tao Hongying ran up to her and picked up her daughter. At this time, you can see the benefits of thick meat. Jiyan did a gourd roll, and apart from the dirty clothes, there were no bruises or scratches on her body. Li Lauer carried the grapes and followed behind, taking 2 steps slowly. He watched his niece perform without stopping her. Needless to say, he was beaten by my mother again. "I told you that you don't care about the child. I was worried that you lost Fu Niuer, but when you got to the door of the house, you even let the child fall." Li Lauer died unjustly, but he didn't dare to argue with his mother. He could only hold up the grape basket as a shield and said, "Mom, I'll wash the grapes for you." After saying that, he ran away quickly. Jiyan was very hot and her outer shirt was dirty, so she simply took it off and hugged Grandma's thigh to act like a baby. "Grandma, let me tell you, my second uncle and I bought a yard, which is very good. It also has a garden, and we can build a greenhouse. In winter, I take Grandma to see the flowers. It must be warm and beautiful, like a heavenly palace." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 519. Chapter 519. Zhenjiazhuang is a magical existence. Mrs. Li pulled off her handkerchief, wiped her granddaughter's sweat, and said distressedly, "It's still early to enjoy flower viewing in winter, and it's not too late to enjoy flowers in autumn. It's such a hot summer, what should I do if I get heat stroke if I go out for a day's running?" Jiyan smiled and pretended to be stupid, opened the box, and brought snacks to Grandma. "Grandma, Julian Zai's snacks are so delicious. If my snack shop doesn't innovate, I'm afraid I'll just follow Julian Zai and eat leftovers." I'm going to think about the new snacks after I get home. Grandma will help me try them, okay? Okay, Grandma can't help me with anything else, can I still eat? Mrs. Lee agreed immediately, and was successfully led away by her granddaughter. Just now, I was worried about my granddaughter opening a flower shop and suffering from heat stroke due to exhaustion. Now, I didn't stop her from talking about it, and now I have added another task of thinking about new snacks. Tao Hongying sighed and had no hope for her mother-in-law. The old lady was insulated from being shrewd when it came to her granddaughter. Ji Yin chose a piece of chenbai cake to give to Grandma, then took the house deed from her arms and gave it to my mother. Mom, the yard is written in your name. Tao Hongying was stunned for a moment, and subconsciously wanted to return the house deed to her daughter. Why isn't the yard you bought written in your name? Hey, I'm a kid, what if I get cheated? Write it in my mother's name, and my mother will keep an eye on it for me, so I'm not afraid of losing it. Ji Yin smiled and held up a piece of water chestnut cake to my mother's mouth. Tao Hongying took a bite. It was really crispy and sweet. Mrs. Lee is particularly aware of her daughter-in-law's hard-spoken and soft-hearted temper, and is worried that she may say something that will make her granddaughter sad even though she clearly loves her child. So she quickly advised, just keep it for your child. How can you still be greedy for her things? When this yard is sold in the future, just give the property deed to your child. Tao Hongying wanted to say something else, but Li Laoer came over with a plate of grapes. When talking about buying a yard and finding a gardener, Li Laoer beamed with joy, and he also echoed the good news from time to time. When it came to building a greenhouse, Li Laoer took out pen and paper again, and the uncle and nephew got together to draw the drawings. Seeing her son and niece behave like this, Mrs. Lee suddenly figured it out when she remembered that her grandchildren were much older than her granddaughters and were still playing silly things every day. When it's time to let it go and practice. You can't let these brothers become worse than sisters in the future, right? Then why do you want to protect your sister? The boys of the Lee family can be mediocre, but they must not be raised to be useless people who only know how to eat, drink and have fun. When the boys all came back for dinner in the evening, they were all happy to hear that their sister was going to open a flower shop. They all talked about going to the new yard to see the new yard during the holiday. As a result, as soon as they put down their dishes, Grandma announced to them that they were going out for training. Jiaran and brother Li just paid it off, while Jiaxi and Jian exploded immediately. They were so happy that they wanted Gaoer to jump up and break a hole in the roof. They had long been envious that Ji Yi and Lu Yang could go south with the ship. They also want to see those foreigners with yellow hair and blue eyes, and also want to see the vast sea, and even more, they want to see sea fish as big as houses. It's a pity that Grandma refused to agree to the request many times before. Unexpectedly, she agreed easily this time. Jiaran and brother Li were also moved, but they knew more about the importance of studies, so they looked at him with envy and said nothing. Mrs. Li patted the two sensible grandchildren and said, Jian and Jiaxi are not good at studying, and they haven't made much progress just hanging around in the academy all day long, so we let them go out for a walk to see if they are there suitable business. You should study hard first. The exam is coming soon. Try your best to do well in the exam. If you want to go out during the winter vacation, just ask the academy for a few more days. If you make up 2 months, it will be enough for you to go to Quanzhou. Jiaran and brother Li were excited at that time and quickly stood up to salute Grandma. Jiaran said, Thank you Grandma, we will definitely take the exam well this time. Mrs. Li sat down with her grandson. Mr. Wen said that day, read thousands of books and travel thousands of miles. Grandma actually doesn't understand these big principles, but Grandma knows that it is always right if the boy has more knowledge. You brothers will take turns going out from now on. Take care of each other and have a companion. Everything else is good, but you must pay attention to safety. At any time, life is the first priority, and the rest is not important, understand, on one side, NGXC and the cat. After hearing this, my brother quickly stepped forward to salute, and all 5 brothers responded solemnly. I know, Grandma, don't worry. They knew very well that the family had suffered for more than 10 years because their uncle disappeared while studying. Grandma was able to allow them to go out for a walk. I don't know how determined she was. They must not let down the wishes of Grandma and the family. After dinner, the boys all ran to the academy for evening classes. Li Lao-san and Zhao Yuru also came back. They were also happy when they heard that the boys were going to Quanzhou with the fleet. Even though what happened to their eldest brother still leaves them with lingering fears. But you can't stop eating just because you choked once. Besides, the Li family is no longer the Li family before. I dare not say that the children will be taken care of every aspect when they go out. At least the fleet is owned by the family, so it will not be difficult to find a few more people to protect them. As for the good news, the matter has already begun to be discussed. When going to bed at night, she pulled Shui Ling and Shui Yun to sleep on the bed, and asked carefully if there were any boys of 14 or 15 years old in Zhenjiazhuang who were good and clever. Or an experienced uncle who is in his 40s and often moves around. I have to say that Zhenjiazhuang is really a magical place, just like Doraemon's pocket, where you can get whatever you want. Shui Yun and Shui Ling patted their chests and assured that there were also uncles and more boys. Ji Yun planned to discuss it with her grandma and uncle some other day, and then ask Yeshan and Dongmei to go to Zhenjiazhuang. She thought like this. She was tired from running around the yard during the day, and fell asleep quickly. Naturally, she didn't see that the little fox Santiago had rebelled, and she slept happily between Shui Ling and Shui Yun. The little fox likes the fragrant and soft little beauty so much. As for the owner, if he doesn't ride him while sleeping and it will almost die due to the pressure, he can also consider liking him a little more. 3 days passed in a flash, and Jiaran and Brother Li were finally about to take the exam. This time, the academy paid more attention to the examination of talents. Dean Zhou and 3 gentlemen personally led the team, prepared a fleet of 7 carriages, and took 35 students into the city to take the exam. For safety reasons, the 35 test baskets were prepared together by the academy. After Wang Sheng and Lu Kuana's incident, all the students had a good memory and just dressed neatly and neatly. No one wore a wooden sign. When they arrived at the gate of Gongyuan, which was used as an examination room, they found that the other students were also empty-handed. Needless to say, everyone must know this. Luoan Academy, from the dean to the students, all feel that their faces are dull, and they are more and more motivated to take the exam well and bring glory to the academy. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 520. Chapter 520. Everything is inferior, only reading is good. Before entering the examination room, all candidates must be thoroughly inspected to prevent cheating. Fortunately, the dignity of scholars was still preserved. 2 sheds were built at the entrance of the Gongyuan. Each time 2 candidates went in, they took off their clothes and were inspected before being put into the courtyard. If there are any inappropriate students, they will be immediately picked out and dragged away. In previous years, there were students who took desperate measures, but this year, none of them were found. Because all students are afraid of being cheated and falsely accused of cheating, they don't bring any extra things with them. The soldiers looked boring, and in the end they were all bored, so they just had to deal with it. This process is said to be simple, but in reality it is very slow and painful. Even though only half of Tianwu is left, the scientific examination is barely retained, and many unnecessary rules have been deleted. Even after being admitted as a scholar, it is not sure whether there will be tax exemptions and other preferential treatment, but there are still many people taking the examination. After all, everything is inferior, only reading is high. This sentence is engraved in the bones of all Tianwu people, and it will not change because of anything. The queue of students taking the exams was very far away, and the people watching the excitement were further separated. This also includes the dean and gentlemen of the academy, as well as the three brothers Mr. Wen and Li Zhensheng, plus Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying, and Ji Yin, who are looking around in the carriage. This time, Jiaran and brother Li will stay and eat in a small cubicle in Gongyuan for 3 days. Based on Ji Yin's previous thoughts, he definitely wanted to get some good things for his brothers, such as biscuits and oil tea noodles, which were convenient and very hungry. The former can be eaten as soon as you grab it, while the latter can be made into a bowl of sweet noodle soup with hot water. However, because of the note hidden on the wooden sign, the academy was frightened and immediately prepared all the food and supplies the students needed and did not allow anyone to bring extra things. The good news could only die out. After all, she was really unfamiliar with the imperial examinations in this time and space. If she brought something taboo to her brother, she would be doing something bad out of good intentions. Everyone watched eagerly, seeing that it was almost noon, and the last student entered the Gongyuan. The door was immediately closed tightly, and soldiers were guarded inside and outside the door. Their swords were sharp and no one was allowed to approach. There was no point for everyone to stay, so the college left one gentleman and 2 senior attendants. The Li family left Zheng Feng, Zheng He and a carriage, and the rest went back. Li Laosan was in a hurry to return to Luoan, and lunch was the busiest time in the cafeteria. Li Zhensheng also wanted to go back to the restaurant, while Li Laoer wanted to take Mr. Wen to the flower shop. Old Mrs. Li was in a mess, thinking about her grandson, and couldn't do anything when she returned home, so she simply went to the new flower shop. Li Laoer has just named the flower shop Baiwen Garden. The plaque has been carved and hung at the entrance of the courtyard. The gardener's family sent by the housekeeper of the home mansion is CAO. The old couple and the young couple are all responsible people and are very diligent and obedient. They have only moved in for 2 days, and they have already tidied up everything inside and outside the courtyard, including the small garden on the east side. Their deeds of sale have also been transferred from the Marquis mansion to the Li family, and Li Laoer also made it clear to the 4 young and old. From now on, they will be fed and housed in a small courtyard, and their treatment will be the same as that of a marquis. They will be provided with clothing in all seasons and rewards during the new year. In addition, the wages are 20% higher than those at the home mansion, because there is more work here in Baiwen Garden and not as leisurely as the home mansion. The 4 members of the CAO family were very frightened. They were old servants of the home mansion for many years, and the princess was also the young master of the home mansion. It was their duty to work for the master, so how could they get a raise in wages? But they couldn't refuse, so they had no choice but to accept it. These days, they are really busy without touching the ground, for fear that they will not be able to afford the salary. But the only regret is that although this small courtyard is called Baiwen Garden, there are not a single flower at all now. Mr. Wen and Mrs. Li walked around and were very satisfied with the small courtyard, so they asked the same question. Mr. Wen smiled and said, "Everywhere in this yard is good, except that there are no flowers. When will the flowers be sent?" After saying that, he pointed to the small garden and asked, "If you want to build a greenhouse here, it is best to find some glazed tiles come over, letting in light in winter, making it warm and beautiful. But for glazed tiles, neither's Hai-Hen nor I have the ability. We can only wait for the Marquis to come back and ask the Marquis to find them." Li Laoer said with a smile, "Don't worry, sir, there will be good flowers and glazed tiles." After saying that, he winked at his little niece. Ji Yin also smiled and made a face in return to the second uncle. These past few nights, the uncle and nephew were not busy in vain, they had already made arrangements. Of course, it goes without saying that famous flowers can be moved from the space. As for the glazed tiles, when Ji Yin returned to live in the village in her previous life, She wanted to completely repair the old house. She had bought all the materials, but the sudden drop in temperature made it unsuitable for groundbreaking. So, the inside of the old house was repainted, the floor tiles were installed, the kitchen was renovated, and the furniture and appliances were brought in. Only the tiles, doors, windows, etc. outside would not be touched until spring, and then she traveled through time. For this reason, the large pieces of glass she bought were kept piled in the warehouse. Nowadays, a greenhouse is built in the flower shop, which will be of great use. Of course, the glass she saved would not be enough to build a greenhouse on an acre of land. But it's not too difficult to design it well and ensure that half of the daylight can be seen in the greenhouse. Mr. Wen also knew that there was something miraculous about the good news. Seeing the two uncles and nephews acting like this, he stopped asking further questions. Everyone went to cyclamen for lunch at noon. Ms. Lee was a little irritable, always thinking about her grandson who was taking the exam. Jian and his second uncle discussed it and decided to advance all the work for the next few days, so they headed back to Baiwan Garden. Orange Ms. Lee and Tao Hongying are responsible for cleaning up the main house in the backyard and will stay here for a few days. Even after the Gongyuan opens, Jiaran and brother Li will be brought over to live with them, and they will be allowed to relax for a few days while waiting for the results to be posted. In order to take the exam, the two children woke up at midnight and stayed up until midnight, which made them very tired. Now, regardless of how you did in the exam, you should play for a few days and take a good rest. Li Laoer went to the carpenter's workshop to pick up the flower stands, while Jiyan took Dongmei to the backyard of the home mansion. Dongmei and Das Han's yard is right at the back door, which is very convenient for helping Jiyan cheat. Soon, pots of famous flowers were loaded onto the carriage outside the back door. Even if outsiders saw them, they would think that these famous flowers were found by the home mansion with the help of the Li family. After all, the chief steward of the Marquis mansion went all over Zinda to buy flower seeds and roots. He even didn't care about the half-dead flower seedlings, and even took the pots back. Of course, the garden cannot be filled with all famous flowers. They will be too eye-catching and may easily arouse excessive jealousy. Secondly, things are valuable when they are rare. The reason why famous flowers are famous is because they are rare. If they are all over the mountains and plains, and if 5 or 6 trees are knocked down with one step, no one will care and no one will like them. So, in the end, we pulled a few more carts of ordinary flowers and plants, and even a few tanks of water lilies. Among them, the most outstanding ones are dozens of roses. When in full bloom, they are enough to decorate the walls of the garden. 4 carriages were going back and forth 7 or 8 times between the Marquis mansion and Baiwan Garden, so they could not avoid being noticed and looked at a few times. No one dared to inquire at the Marquis mansion, but there were people outside the Baiwan Garden gate who were curious and watching. End of this chapter.